Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our retro look back and retro review of the Canon PowerShot A550. This is a compact point-and-shoot digital camera, which you can still find online through Amazon and eBay for about 40 bucks or so. It's not a bad purchase for that price point because it has a decent 4x optical zoom, a 7.1 megapixel sensor, which again isn't huge by today's standards, especially considering smartphones and whatnot that have a ton of pixels now packed in. But again, with a digital point-and-shoot camera, you get a little bit better performance in terms of stability. There's a bit of optical stabilization built in, and your images do tend to look a bit more balanced and natural looking as far as color and reproduction goes. And there's also the added advantage of the optical zoom, which is a feature most smartphones still emit in their cameras. The very top here features access to a xenon flash. There's also that viewfinder. So in addition to a pretty small, I would say, almost 2.8-inch TFT LCD display, there's access to that viewfinder function, which is kind of a throwback if you want to use two different ways to kind of look at your images and shots before you capture it. And as a whole, the A560 is a fairly attractive, I think, digital camera. It's pretty compact, easy to take with you, although it still used AA batteries. It used two of those, which is unfortunate. Behind the battery door, there's also access for a slot that you could put in a full-size SD card, and also supported that up to 32 gigabytes. Below here, there's access to a tripod mount, fairly standard stuff, and underneath this flap here, there's access to a mini USB port for transferring files to a Mac or a PC. There's also a AV out for connecting to an HD monitor if you want to view back images through a television screen. And finally, there's a lanyard strap on the top, the shutter key, two-stage shutter key for focusing, for zooming up and down. There's also a power on-off switch and also a toggle switch that goes through the various features between autofocus mode, video recording mode, although again not HD by any means, just simple VGA resolution. There's also different modes for taking portraits as well as night scenes and so on and so forth. Finally, there's a few LED lights, and below here there's access to the 5-way navigation toggle as well as a playback key for your images and videos, and also a delete key and a display and menu keys. They're pretty tactile and responsive as well as nicely designed. So for a digital camera that is pretty old now in terms of the overall design, one thing I do like about the A560 is that it does have an accelerometer built in. So there is automatic rotation when you look back at your images. For instance, if we tap on this is a shot that I recently took, and you'll notice that the display will actually flip if you actually rotate the camera. So it actually has a few modern touches on there that still makes it fairly competitive and usable. You can also zoom all the way into your shots, and you can tell that colors are fairly well balanced, although not the most detailed images in the world. Still relatively sharp and fast to capture. There's also a mono speaker I forgot to mention earlier located on the very top there. So tapping again, that takes you back into the main screen for taking images and shots, and you can check out details like how many shots are remaining in the SD card that you insert. There's no built-in memory, unfortunately. There's settings, so right now we're in the portrait mode. There's also things for the autofocus, the ISO settings, the flash settings, so on and so forth. So it's pretty simple and easy to set up. One thing I have noticed about the A560 is that the battery does drain pretty quickly. Even if you put in regular new AA batteries, it seems to drain after, I would say, about 2 to 3 weeks of use, which is something that, of course, you're not going to have a problem with if you had a rechargeable battery. This one stacks up that cost quite quickly, even though the image quality is rather sharp and impressive. So if we want to do a quick sample shot, let's say there is a iPod Touch we wanted to quickly capture, and this is one of the advantages of optical zoom. I can go all the way in, and then when I'm satisfied, I can tap on to focus. Afterwards, it seems like the flash has been turned on automatically, and of course for the best results you should probably take the images out onto a computer to view them back. But from a quick glance here, I can see that the shot here is more or less in focus, and again fairly impressive for a rather old digital point-and-shoot camera. So definitely still functional for some occasional shooting, or if you're planning on giving this to a kid, maybe to take their own pictures. You don't want them to carry around a more expensive camera, or you don't want them to carry around a more expensive phone, let's say. This might be a good option because images are still quite good. Of course, video playback and video recording is another story. The frame rates are kind of slow, as well as the image quality becomes a little bit more grainy, so that's an unfortunate downside. But for images, overall, we're still impressed with what you get out of this particular camera. So right now you can see we have 30 frames per second. If I tap on record, it starts that process. There is a microphone on here, so you can still pick up sound, unlike some other point-and-shoots in the same era where it didn't even have a microphone, so your audio clips were basically mute, so that was not very attractive. But you can see here that I can still zoom into my subjects, although focus seems to be locked after you start shooting, which is a little bit unfortunate. So that's the video taking functionality, and it takes up not too much space either, which is nice to see, just because again the files themselves are quite small because of the resolution. So anyways, this has been a quick kind of retro review and retro look back at the Canon PowerShot A550. Still a digital point-and-shoot camera that I think is recommended as far as the performance is concerned. It's not the thinnest or most beautiful camera by today's standards, but the resolution as well as the interesting accelerometer function are still features that you'll find in cameras today. Thanks for watching this retro look back here at OS Reviews.